So now let's talk about lighting instruments. And the instrument is the device that holds the light source, if it's a fluorescent, incandescent, or LED. And so when I look at all these things hanging above me, each of those little boxes that you kind of see is a type of instrument. So kind of let's go over a little bit of these different types of instruments and a little bit of what their functions might be, because you're going to need different instruments for different situations and different scenarios. So let's come back. And so the first type of instrument we have is what's called a Fresnel. And a Fresnel actually has a lens in front of the light. And so you can adjust that lens to give you a different type of light. So you can have a concentrated narrow beam that could light up just around someone's face or their head or a particular part of your set. Or you can take that beam and you can spread it out and it can cover a much larger area. And so Fresnels have the ability to really get in and help shape the light that you're going to be using in your studio. The next type of light we have is what's called a scoop. And a scoop is going to provide you with kind of a soft light. And one of the things I remembered is looking back at the Fresnel is it's going to give you a hard light or hard shadow. But with the scoop, what I have is I'm not looking directly at the source of light. The source of light is going to be in the bottom of this reflective bowl, and the light's going to reflect all inside. And when we deal with reflective light, that tends to become softer. So we can use this to project light in a very large area, but it's also going to do, because of the way this bowl is shaped, it's going to start as a cone. So it's going to get, the further it goes, the bigger it's going to get, the closer, the smaller it's going to get. So if we want to cover something with a lot of light, we're going to use what's called a broad light. And this is a broad light that's going to provide a hard light or a hard shadow, because it's giving you direct light from the source. It's not being diffused or deflected. And a lot of times, if you ever get to see the light source itself, you're probably going to be looking at a hard light. If the light source is changed by reflecting off of a softer background, or if it passes through a sheet or a piece of paper or some other filter, then you're going to get into the softer light. But with these broads that are doing hard lights, they're going to be large. They're going to have possibly single or multi lamps. So this panel is using a bunch of simple single LEDs. This broad light, which has a very shiny reflective surface, has a singular tube light that's going to be about that long, and it's going to go across the back. And these are going to cast a very hard shadow. So if we want to do a broad light with something softer, then we'll use an instrument maybe like this. So in this case, those same little tubes are down inside the bottom of the light, and I have a reflective surface that's not polished. So this is not like a mirror reflector. This is going to be like a piece of paper, a piece of white that's reflecting that light, and it's thus making it not as hard on the eyes. It's diffusing it a little bit. And so with this, again, this is going to be large. This is going to show out a lot of area for the light, and it's going to give us that soft light as opposed to the hard, because it's now reflecting that light off of something less obtrusive. The next type of light we're going to use is what's called an ellipsoidal light. And this is really good at creating a small hole and shooting at great distances. So we can do a projection through this light. We can project a video if it's designed well. We can also a lot of times project an image, which is known as a cookie or a gobo. It gets the name cookie because it goes through a little metal disc that has a pattern cut through it, much like a cookie cutter if you're making custom shape cookies. So you can give you that as a logo, a pattern, or an image. And with this, you can take that logo and adjust the focus. So you can make it a very crisp logo on the wall way behind me, or you can make it a very soft, fuzzy photo that can just be a subtle part of a set decoration. So when we're dealing with instruments and sources, they are two separate things. So we have sources of light like an incandescent, a fluorescent, or an LED. And each of those lights will go into an instrument to have them provide power and thus illumination. So an ellipsoidal, a broad light, a scoop, a soft broad, or Fresnel light. All the instruments will require a bulb or source in order to operate. But one of the things is you cannot cross all of the bulbs with all of the instruments. Like I said early on, fluorescents were mainly good at just hard, broad lights. You couldn't use them in ellipsoidals or scoops or Fresnels. So fluorescents were just stuck as a broad. Now, pretty much anything an incandescent can do has been replaced by an LED. So especially in television studio, we're backing away from incandescent bulbs and we're starting to use more and more of the LEDs. So an LED should fit all of the instruments as same as an incandescent, except the fluorescent, you're mainly stuck with a broad light. And so that's going to be a look at the types of lights and instruments that go into creating a studio. So if you look right above my head, you should see two types of instruments. What kind are they? If you answered broad, you'd be right. If I look at the other two instruments over there, what type of instruments were those? If you said Fresnels, then you would be right. And it's kind of hard to see, but right next to that broad is that that's an ellipsoidal, but the image is kind of blurry, so it's kind of hard to see. So that's going to be a look at the different types of sources and the different types of instruments that we use to light a